I always thought lies came with warning signs. Raised voices. Shifty eyes. Silence stretching just a second too long. But when it came to my family, their lies were dressed in warm dinners, polite smiles, and phrases like, "Everything's fine, honey. We just need to be a little more careful this month." They lied with love. And that's what made it so dangerous. I was 23 when the cracks started to show. But the real fracture, the one that shattered everything I thought I knew, came one chilly Monday morning when I came home early from work. The house was too quiet. My mom, usually bustling in the kitchen or humming while folding laundry, was sitting on the floor, back against the wall, a handful of bills scattered around her. Her hands trembled as she picked one up, stared at it, then threw it aside like it had personally insulted her. I froze in the doorway, keys still dangling from my hand. "Mom," she jolted like she'd been caught stealing. "Ava," she said quickly, trying to gather the papers. "You're home early." I stepped closer, heart pounding, eyes scanning the documents. Overdue. Final notice. Collection agency. Foreclosure. I'd seen words like that before, but only in movies. What is this? My voice barely made it past my throat. Mom smiled, but it was all wrong. Tight. Cracked at the edges. Just a little mistake with the bank. It'll be sorted. Nothing for you to worry about. But it was something. Something big. Something that had been brewing in the shadows for years while I worked late shifts, skipped college parties, and passed on vacations because we're saving money. I remember walking into my room that night and just standing there. My walls, still plastered with old band posters and sticky notes from high school. The faint scent of lavender from the diffuser she bought me last Christmas. And a thick, choking silence that made everything feel foreign. For a long time, I'd blamed myself for being so naive. How could I not have noticed? There were signs. Small ones. My dad canceling the cable package without warning. My brother moving out too suddenly. My mom crying silently in the laundry room and saying it was just allergies. But I didn't connect the dots. Because in our house, you didn't ask hard questions. You smiled. You worked. You obeyed. And you definitely didn't challenge the idea that family always told you the truth. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to calm the thunder in my chest. A single thought echoed over and over in my mind. What else have they lied about? The next day, I began digging. I started small, checking the mail before they could, looking through drawers and old filing cabinets. They were messy, sloppy, even, like they'd stopped caring whether anyone found out. That's when I discovered the envelope, stuffed in the back of a filing folder labeled Tax 2015. It wasn't taxes, though. It was a bank statement. Not our current one. An old one. From a hidden account I'd never heard of before. The balance from just 5 years ago? $379,000. I stared at the number so long it blurred. Then I checked the name, my dad. Same social security, same address. And then, I checked the next page. Withdrawals. Month by month. Until the balance was nearly zero. I don't know how long I sat there. At some point, I realized I was crying. Not loud sobs, just tears sliding quietly down my cheeks like they'd been waiting years to be released. I confronted them that evening. Not with yelling. Just a question. Did we used to have more money? My dad looked at me. Blinked. Why would you ask that? No reason, I lied. But something in his eyes flickered. A moment of panic. I was learning to recognize it now. The look people give when truth starts to slip from their grip. He changed the subject. Told me to focus on my job. That things were different back then. Different how? It was like they were speaking in riddles. And I was done playing polite. That week, I took 2 days off work and drove out to the city library. My best friend Mia worked there and owed me a few favors. We dug through public records, news archives, and even pulled real estate files. And there it was. 10 years ago, my family sold a piece of land my grandfather left us. A $250,000 sale. Never mentioned. Never spoken of. I called Mia when I got home. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. Maybe there's an explanation. There's always an explanation, I said flatly. But not always the truth. The truth, it seemed, had been buried deeper than I ever imagined. The next few weeks were like peeling away layers of a rotten onion. The more I uncovered, the more it stank. My family hadn't just lied about our financial situation. They had orchestrated it. They'd spent money like it would never run out. Luxury vacations, secret credit cards, investments that went bad. And when things started to crumble, they did the unthinkable. They cut corners. They stopped paying my college fund. They sold my car behind my back and claimed it was stolen. They made me get a second job while they silently suffered in silence and shame, pretending to be victims.
But now?
Now they're the ones losing sleep. The ones answering collection calls. The ones hiding from neighbors and distant relatives, asking where the money went. And me? I've stopped asking for the truth. Because I finally know it. They didn't lie to protect me. They lied to protect themselves. And now, they're the ones suffering for it. For weeks after I found out, the house felt like a stage. Every movement, every conversation, every glance, all rehearsed, all careful, as if we were actors pretending to be a happy family. And I was the only one who knew we were on the edge of collapse. Mom went back to pretending everything was fine. She'd smile too wide. Ask how my day was like she hadn't been sitting on a pile of past due bills an hour before. Dad was colder, more distant. He started leaving earlier in the mornings, coming back later, avoiding eye contact. And when he did look at me, it was with an expression I couldn't quite name. Was it shame? Was it fear? Or was he just hoping I'd forget everything I'd discovered? But I couldn't. The truth didn't just sit quietly in my head.
It consumed me.
I couldn't sleep.
Couldn't eat.
Couldn't focus at work. I'd sit in the break room, replaying moments from my childhood, wondering which ones were real and which were crafted from convenience and lies. My manager, Lisa, pulled me aside one afternoon. "You okay, Ava?" she asked gently. "You've been off lately." I forced a smile. "Just family stuff." She nodded, understanding too quickly. Family stuff always shows in the eyes. I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. That weekend, everything escalated. It started with the mailbox. I went out to get the mail on Saturday morning, and tucked among the ads and the magazines was another envelope, thicker than usual. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity, like always, got the better of me. Inside, foreclosure documents. Our home. My home. We were behind by 6 months. Final notice. Eviction was now on the table. My knees buckled. I sat right there on the porch, sunlight burning the top of my head, and stared at the words like they belonged to someone else. 6 months. All this time they'd been smiling over dinner, watching movies with me, planning my birthday like everything was normal, and the roof over our heads was already slipping away. I stormed back inside, heart racing. Mom was in the kitchen, humming, peeling apples. "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, slamming the envelope on the counter. She jumped, knife clattering against the wood. Her eyes met mine and I saw it.
Panic.
Raw and unfiltered. "I didn't want you to worry," she whispered. "But I am worried," I snapped. "Because I'm not 5 anymore. I'm not someone you can keep in the dark and expect to stay quiet."
She didn't say anything.
Just wiped her hands on a towel and looked away. I waited. But she didn't offer an explanation. No apology. No plan. Just silence. That night, I went to Mia's apartment. I couldn't take the tension anymore. She poured us both a glass of wine and let me rant. "Why wouldn't they just be honest with you?" she asked. "Because honesty requires accountability," I said. "And I don't think they're ready to face what they've done." Mia hesitated. "Do you think they ever planned to tell you?" I shook my head.
No.
I think they were hoping the lie would die quietly. The next few days felt like a fever dream. I found out my parents had borrowed money from my uncle a year ago, $30,000. Never paid it back. Now he was threatening legal action. They also defaulted on their car loan. Our family SUV was repossessed while we were eating dinner one night. We didn't even notice until morning. And then, I found the spreadsheet. It was buried on Dad's old laptop, hidden in a folder marked Work Files. But it wasn't work. It was a log. Every loan, every credit card, every asset they sold. The vacation home in Florida, Mom's jewelry, the antique paintings from Grandma's attic. All gone. But one thing stood out. My college fund. There it was clearly labeled. $52,000. Withdrawn in chunks. Used to pay off credit cards, make down payments, and most shockingly, fund my brother Brandon's failed business. Brandon. The golden child. The one who always had excuses. The one who just needed a little help getting started. The one who disappeared to Miami and came back broke, but still smug. I texted him. Ava, did you know Mom and Dad used my college money for your business? Brandon. Ava, not this again. Ava, so you did know? Brandon. They said you'd be fine. You had a job. You didn't need the money like I did. I stared at the message, rage boiling up in my chest.
You didn't need it like I did.
As if my dreams were disposable. As if my future was a luxury, and his was a necessity. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I'd spent so long tiptoeing around the truth, pretending I could live with the betrayal.
But now?
I wanted answers. Real ones. And I wanted justice. I came home that night with fire in my eyes. Dad was watching TV. Mom was knitting like nothing was wrong. I stood in the doorway and said one sentence that changed everything. I know everything. The remote slipped from Dad's hand. Mom dropped her needles. I pulled out the spreadsheet, the foreclosure notice, the college fund records, laid them out like evidence in a courtroom. And then I asked the question that haunted me more than anything. Why? They didn't speak. I gave them silence to fill, but they didn't even try. So I answered it myself. You lied to me. You stole from me. You let me believe we were broke while you were funneling money into Brandon's fantasy. And now that it's all gone, you want me to carry the shame? Still, no words. Just faces frozen in disbelief, like they couldn't believe I was the one calling them out. Say something. I yelled. But the silence said everything. They were guilty. And they were never going to admit it. After that night, after I laid out all the evidence and demanded answers, I thought something would shift. That maybe the weight of the truth would force them to finally open up. But they didn't. They just retreated. Mom locked herself in her room for 2 days, coming out only to cook or do laundry, never meeting my eyes. Dad became practically invisible, leaving before sunrise, coming back long after dark. As if the more he avoided me, the less real any of it became. But it was real, and I couldn't unknow what I knew, especially not after what I found next. It started with a visit to our family attorney's office. I told them I needed copies of any legal documents tied to my college fund. I expected resistance, maybe a few raised eyebrows, but the receptionist, an older woman named Carol, just gave me a long, sympathetic look. Sit tight, she said. I remember your name from when the fund was set up. You were still in middle school. That alone hit like a punch to the chest. I remembered my dad bragging about it. Your future's locked in, Ava, he'd said, patting my head. No matter what happens, your college is covered. He said it with so much pride. I thought it meant something. 20 minutes later, Carol returned with a thick folder and slid it across the counter. Everything's in here, including the withdrawal authorizations. I froze. Authorizations. She nodded slowly. Your father and your brother. Both signatures were required to access the account. I blinked. My brother?
Yes.
Your parents added Brandon as a joint custodian when he turned 18. It was unusual, but she hesitated. Families have their own ways of doing things. I don't even remember driving home. My mind was a spinning wheel of betrayal, snapping connections, and dangerous thoughts. Brandon didn't just know about the money. He helped take it. He had the power to stop it.
To tell me. To protect me. And he chose not to.
When I got home, I went straight to my room and locked the door. Hands shaking, I flipped through the folder, scanning signatures and dates. There it was. His name. Right next to Dad's. Multiple times. My stomach twisted. I thought back to my senior year, the day I got accepted into the university of my dreams, Columbia. I remember running down the stairs, holding the acceptance letter, crying from joy. And Brandon had just shrugged. Wow, fancy. You really think you'll survive out there? I thought he was teasing. I laughed it off. Now I knew what he was really thinking. He already knew I wouldn't go, because he'd already signed the money away. I confronted him the next day. He didn't even try to deny it. I was young, he said, sounding bored. Dad said it was the only way to keep the business running. It was my money, I snapped. My future. He leaned back against the counter and gave me a look that made my skin crawl. And? Look where you are now. Still alive. Still breathing. So maybe it wasn't the end of the world. Do you even feel guilty? He smirked. For helping my family?
No.
That's when I realized Brandon didn't see what he did as wrong. He saw it as a favor. A sacrifice, he thought, I should have been willing to make. I wanted to scream, to slap him, to erase him. But instead, I went quiet. And when I'm quiet, I'm dangerous. Because silence is where I plan, where I decide how to burn bridges with precision. The next day, I made my decision. I opened my own bank account, moved every cent I had into it. I cut off the auto deposit that went to the joint family account I'd stupidly kept open. And then, I went digging again. I started calling people. Extended family, old neighbors, friends of my parents. I played dumb, pretended I was planning a surprise party, trying to piece together old stories.
What I found horrified me.
Years ago, before the money was gone, before Brandon's business failed, my family had refused to help my Aunt Lisa pay for her daughter's life-saving surgery. Lisa had called them crying, begging, and my parents told her, "We just can't afford it." But the timeline didn't match. The surgery was in 2018. The account wasn't emptied until late 2019. They could have helped. They just didn't. And then came the worst part. My aunt said, "Ava, your mom told me back then they were saving for your education. That they couldn't touch the money because it was locked away just for you."
My throat closed.
They'd used me as an excuse to say no. And then used my money for themselves. That night, I sat in my car outside our house for an hour, too disgusted to go inside.
It all made sense now.
The lies weren't random. They were strategic.
And I
had been nothing but a tool to them. The good daughter they could control. The one who never asked for much. The one who worked quietly and obeyed. But that Ava? She was gone. Burned away by betrayal. Replaced by someone who saw them for what they really were.
Thieves.
Cowards. Liars. And I finally understood the price of blind loyalty. It wasn't just my money they stole. It was years of peace, trust, dreams, and self-worth. And that's something no apology would ever return. As the days passed, Madison couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. Even though her family had tried to make amends by acting sweet and helpful, their sudden shift in behavior only deepened her suspicion. It was too perfect, too rehearsed. And her intuition, that quiet, firm voice within, kept telling her that their kindness was a mask. One afternoon, while cleaning the attic of her new home, Madison stumbled across an old box labeled with her name. Inside were journals, photographs, and sealed envelopes, things she hadn't seen in years. One envelope in particular stood out. It was from her late grandmother, who had always told her, "The truth will come to you when you're ready to see it." With trembling hands, Madison opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, her grandmother's voice coming alive through the ink. "Madison, if you're reading this, it means you've begun to ask the right questions. There are things your parents never told you. Things I tried to protect you from, but you deserve to know everything." As Madison read through the letter, a chill ran down her spine. It spoke of family secrets, of lies built to protect reputations, of decisions made not in love, but in control. Her grandmother had suspected that Madison was being used as a pawn in the family's long-standing manipulations. Tears welled in Madison's eyes. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't imagining the cracks. She was finally starting to see the truth. Madison stared out the window that evening, the sky painted in hues of orange and violet. The letter from her grandmother rested in her lap, and a quiet determination stirred within her. She had been lied to, manipulated, used. But now she knew, and knowing gave her power. The next morning, she made a decision. No more silent suffering. No more pretending. She called a family meeting, not out of fear, but out of strength. She needed them to hear her, to see the woman they had underestimated for far too long. As they sat across from her in her living room, she held nothing back. I know what you did. I know how you twisted my story to fit your own narrative. And I'm done letting your version define me. Her mother's face paled. Her father looked away. Her brother shifted uncomfortably in his seat. But Madison didn't flinch. She spoke of the lies, the secrets, the choices they made without her consent. She told them how deeply their betrayal cut, and how it fueled her desire to break free and heal. I'm not asking for your approval. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm claiming my life, on my terms. And just like that, she felt the chains fall away. She wasn't that confused, naive girl anymore. She was Madison, the woman who rose from deception with fire in her heart and truth on her tongue. As her family left in stunned silence, Madison smiled to herself. The truth didn't break her. It saved her. And now,